Welcome everyone, I am Adesewa Josh and this is Africa Matters. For more than a century, the International Women's Day is marked to celebrate the achievements of women globally, highlight their challenges and push for equity and inclusion. This year, the United Nations says the digital gender gap is a major challenge facing women and girls across the world. And it's even worse in developing countries where internet access, tech education and training is limited. Although the number of internet users on the continent has more than doubled since 2015, the World Bank says more than 190 million African women and girls are offline or lack access to the internet. The United Nations says low and middle-income countries have lost an estimated $1 trillion from their GDP as a result of women's exclusion from the digital space in the last decade, a loss that's projected to increase to $1.5 trillion by 2025. The World Bank estimates that over 230 million jobs in sub-Saharan Africa will require digital skills by 2030, and that women and girls could miss out on future job opportunities if their participation remains low. So this week, we look at how women across Africa could bridge the digital divide while solving the challenges they face in their communities. Memunaba, how are they doing it where you are?
Thanks, Adesewa. Here in the Gambia, some women are trying to break gender barriers by setting technological training centers, especially in urban areas. But women in farming are facing much bigger challenge. Climate change has led to a saline water problem that is threatening their lives and livelihoods, as I found out when I traveled to Kerewan in northern Gambia.
The Gambia sits in approximately 11,000 square kilometers of land, and about 1,300 square kilometers of it is covered in water. The country's economy is highly dependent on farming, and along the coastline of the River Gambia, many women have grown rice for years, but they have become frustrated by an emerging pattern. Rising sea levels in the ocean has led to more salty waters flowing into the River Gambia, and it's affecting the quality of rice grown here.
Because of the salt, the rice hasn't grown. We can't grow anything to eat here. All this is now a waste.
Jane Obasanko has been a rice farmer all her life. It is the only job she knows. Farming here, it's passed down from one generation to another. But climate change has completely changed that.
Before the salt intrusion, we used to harvest around 21 bags, which was enough to feed our families and have plenty to sell. But now it's very little. So I have to try other options like growing vegetables. I have to add organic manure to reduce the salt intrusion. Even with that, at times it's a total loss. All we need is a solution.
The vast land where I stand represents washed-up drains for rice farmers here in Kerewan, so they are forced to move uplands due to the effects of climate crisis.
Rice is a staple food here in the Gambia. Jainaba and some of her neighbors call this kitchen garden. It is a small piece of land that they must share to ensure that all families in their communities don't go to sleep hungry.
I think that the solution to saltwater intrusion will be actually to work with nature in terms of creating these solutions. All our solutions must be nature-based. Mangroves can actually, survive in salt water. So planting mangroves will help in the desalinization processes. And of course, some of the places that are not already infected, we need to actually find ways of creating dike, some sort of, engineering process that can help these locals to thrive.
They don't have the tools to check the salinity levels. So they look at the types of weeds that are growing and test the soil to try and work it out. But the situation is getting worse by the day, and the local farming communities are being forced to look for new ways for earning a living. Maimunaba, Africa Matters, Kerewan, Gambia.
Women are also trying to find homegrown solutions. In Ghana, most rural women there are farmers, but they often lack access to loans that would help uplift their families and communities. My colleague Isaac visited a project that is trying to change that.
Thanks, Memuna. Like many women in Africa, Ghanaians face similar challenges, like domestic violence and lack of access to equal opportunities in society. But some of them are defying the odds by working together to economically empower themselves. I went to Ahafo region of Ghana to find out how they are trying to do just that. Zainab Amadou makes beads here in the community of Kenyasi in the Ahafo region of Ghana. She's also been operating this drugstore and a mobile money business since 2021. But 3 years ago, when she was jobless, it was a different story.
At first, it was difficult for me financially because I wasn't employed. All the financial burden fell on my husband, and often it got him frustrated. I was helpless and not economically viable.
But that changed when Zainab joined a savings and loan group in the community. It's mainly made up of women, and that was her source of capital to start her businesses.
Because of the loan I received from the savings group, I run my own businesses. I have control over my finances. I am able to send my children to better schools, and life has been relatively comfortable for me now.
Every week, the women from the savings and loan group meet to discuss their progress and get the needed technical support on how to better manage the funds and keep proper records. Women are the core of Ghana's informal sector, but their lack of access to credit, land, and education makes their economic development relatively difficult. It is even worse for women in rural communities, and any form of intervention which empowers them economically is a game changer.
I'm a trader, and months back it was difficult to secure funding to go in for supplies. But the group supported me, and now my business is stable. I'm able to take care of my children and family.
We didn't imagine this initiative would be that helpful. It has really helped us, and even men in the community want to join for the same economic empowerment.
The international NGO Action Aid has been instrumental in this economic empowerment initiative called the Village Savings and Loan Scheme. It runs in over a dozen communities in Ghana now. Officials say programs like this are crucial in pulling many women out of poverty.
For us, from judging from what we saw on the ground, we've seen that these Village Savings and Loan Association schemes that we are running with the women are providing the real opportunity and supporting these women to realize their dreams.
Banks have made efforts to attract rural women to save money and possibly access loans, but the requirements needed to borrow money simply make it impossible. And for years, the trend hasn't changed. Women like Zainab, though, are already making strides thanks to the support system existing among women in their communities. She's now economically stable and can do more than just dream of expanding her businesses in the future. Isaac Kaleji, Africa Matters, Accra, Ghana. To Nairobi now, where Anne Macharia tells us about a village in Kenya where men are banned. Anne, tell us more.
Thanks, Isaac. So there's a women-only village in northeastern Kenya that's become a safe haven for those escaping rape, female genital mutilation, and child marriage. Here's a snapshot of how life is like for them. Here in Umoja village, located in Kenya's northeastern Samburu region, these women celebrate together. But what they've been through before they came to live here is difficult to process.
I'm very proud to live in this village because now there is no one stressing me and my husband can't insult me here. I live as a mother with children who is fighting for rights against early marriages and female genital mutilation.
These women had little choice but to leave their lives behind and move to this remote village after standing up against cultural practices among their local Samburu tribe was met with hostility.
I do not desire to get married again because I went through a hard time. I was being mistreated and did not have rights, and my children were not allowed to go to school. Now I'm proud to be a mother.
They now live here united in solidarity, building an alternative place to live for those fleeing violence. They make ornaments and sell them to finance their lives. They want to give the next generation better opportunities.
There is no need to have children without a plan. The girls need to be educated and choose their own partners. Not like the old days when their fathers married them off to old men or those with wealth. Girls should choose who they love.
These women say living has given them refuge, and they also hope to extend a helping hand to other women and girls who are mistreated in the surrounding communities. Anne Masharia, Africa Matters.
Joining me now to discuss how African women and girls can tackle some of the challenges they face is Aisha Shuaib. She's an entrepreneur and activist. She joins me from Senegalese capital, Dakar. Thank you so much for joining us. You know, it's obvious there's a huge gender divide across all spheres of life when you're talking about African women, be it in politics, be it in everyday life, and also socioculturally. What would you say is the root cause of this, and how can it be tackled?
I would say historically, African women have never really had the opportunity to emerge as leaders, as equal members of society alongside our male counterparts. So what we see that is happening in today's world is that more women are dominating industries, whether it is in governance or it's in business. We have women leaders now that are at the top of those spaces and are creating opportunities for more of us to emerge. So I would say, you know, when we look at history, this is really where it stemmed from, because African women are generally a bit more conservative from other parts of the world, I would say, and emerging out of colonialism.
Aisha, let me
into.
Yeah, sorry to break in here.
Sure.
When you think of the Dahomey warriors, I mean, I don't know if you've seen the movie. When you think of the Dahomey warriors, when you think of warrior Aisha, when you think of women who led kingdoms, and I'm talking about 17th, 18th century. Yeah, so would you say historically women in Africa have not always felt like leaders, have not always led their own communities? Or would you say something happened along the line and all of those values vanished and we're here where we are now?
Something definitely happened along the line, but I think even with those ones in history, there was still pushback. Amina of Zezo was a warrior. She was a warrior, queen warrior leader, but she still got pushback for being somebody that not only led armies, but did it unapologetically. So over time, I think, you know, we definitely did lose track of that a bit. And I would say African men take a bit of blame there, because we really cannot be fully empowered until the men are able to also play their part in empowering African women.
Right, okay. So let's talk about this year's theme of the International Women's Day, which is talking about the gender divide in terms of, you know, in the digital space. What should gender equality look like for women in the digital space?
We need to ensure that women are accessing the same opportunities just as our male counterparts. Not only that, but they also need to play a part in raising their voices to make room for women, to say their voices, to say their names in rooms where they're not being said. And as far as developing nations, we need to be able to access grassroots communities, get them to be educated and technologically literate, and even provide them with basic needs, because let's face it, when it comes to developing nations in Africa, some of our problems really is not even being technologically savvy per se, but basic needs like clean water and good health and things like this. So even before we begin to talk about technology, we need to identify general gender gaps. I speak for Africa when I say this. Our women have to be considered as monumental and integral members of society. They say empowering a woman is empowering a nation. And until we put our women at the forefront of education and empowerment, we really won't be able to see much development in some of these countries.
So how do African women then compare with the rest of the world when it comes to gender equality?
I would say we're still very much at the bottom of the food chain, for lack of a better phrase. I will say, however, that the times are changing, and I speak as somebody that currently works in the business of sports. And globally, you see so many more women now dominating and heading some of these incredible organizations and are becoming administrators and even athletes. And as a Muslim woman, we're seeing a new age, a coming of more hijabi athletes around the world, international brands accommodating the hijab in some of their designs to be able to create access. So I think if we are more considerate of how we can get African women to be comfortable enough to dominate, to fill in some of these rooms, representation, a huge thing, them being able to see other women that look like them, that are in some of these positions, for them to know that it's okay to come into those spaces. So it's just one of the many things that I think we can do globally. But I would say there has been a regression over time, and it's just because it's easy to be intimidated by educated, empowered women that know their rights, that know their power, that know their capability. But it shouldn't be a cause of intimidation. It should, if anything, it should be a reason to want to engage them further, to want to give them opportunities, to want to empower them, lift them up.
Right. What should Africa look like in terms of women empowerment and equality in the next 20 years? Just paint us a picture of what you think that would look like.
If I can just refer back to COVID eradication, the countries that were at the lead of eradicating COVID in its early days were women-led countries. Unless our government and our public sectors incorporate more female leadership, we're not going to make the kinds of progress that we're looking to make as far as legislation is concerned. What the next couple of years should look like is more women that are concerned about public service, more women that are involved in government, in legislation, in creating laws that favor other women, especially those that just don't have access and don't have representation. And there's no better person that knows our issues more than us. So there just needs to be more women that are occupying spaces of leadership in government as well as the corporate world, so that you can make room for other women to not only thrive, but to be comfortable while thriving, to feel like they're being seen, to feel like they're being considered.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Aisha Shoaib, she is an entrepreneur and activist, and I know also that you are the president of a sports company. Thank you so much for speaking to Africa Matters.
Thank you for having me.
And now we shift our focus to an event that should be celebrated, but for some African women, the experience is often tragic. According to the World Health Organization, childbirth remains risky for millions of women and also for children who die before their 5th birthday. Lakwe, I understand this challenge goes beyond the continent.
Yes, Adesewa. A recent study into black mental mortality rates has shown that black women are 4 times more likely to die in childbirth than their white counterparts. But I went to visit one support group in London that's hosting weekly support and well-being help to many women that may be living through this to challenge this disparity.
I am organised. I am motherhood.
For most women, pregnancy and childbirth can be daunting, but for these women, it can be fatal. According to a MBB race report, black women in the UK are 4 times more likely to die in childbirth.
Working in the healthcare sector not only brings to light these kind of issues. I personally, through my pregnancy, I had high blood pressure. So I was one of the ones who needed to have been seen more throughout the pregnancy, but getting access to these things I found quite difficult. And if I didn't have a midwife who advocated for me, it could have been a different story entirely.
This group was created by Rachel, who says she did not feel supported medically after childbirth. So she now hosts black mums across London who need extra help and advice.
It started from my own experience of having my children being quite isolated during my pregnancy because I had a condition called hyperemesis gravidarum. And when I came out, I just wanted mums to come together, and there was loads of people around me that had had babies.
Many of the women here felt they were not being prioritised during their pregnancy and childbirth. Nikisha was forced into having an emergency caesarean weeks before her due date, as doctors missed a key part of her medical history.
They actually assumed that I had preeclampsia, and that's why I had to have my baby early and induced. And after I gave birth, a doctor came to me and he was reading over my notes and basically said to me that, so do you have high blood pressure or not? Because I don't think we needed to induce you. And that skyrocketed my anxiety because I was basically forced to have my child when I could have went full term.
The report says the figures explain some of the health complications experienced by black women, but it also points to other factors, including the inadequate postnatal and antenatal care. These women say that this weekly meetup is a response to the lack of help that they say isn't provided by the healthcare system and has made their experience of childbirth much worse. A separate report published by the Human Rights Committee highlighted that there were a lack of targets within the UK health sector to end the disparity between black and white mums, and the UK government is facing mounting pressure to address that.
We know that having this data helps us to fight for better care, but we need the government and everyone else to get around it and support the removal of this disparity.
Until that disparity has ended, these women will continue their weekly meetings, knowing it's vital for their well-being. Lape Alarinoye, Africa Matters, London.
Our final report takes us to Lagos, where a female entrepreneur is aiming to tap into Africa's market for wigs and hair extensions. This market is worth billions of dollars. However, most of the profits are gobbled up by foreign manufacturers. Can processing hair locally shift the balance and bring some of that wealth back home and into the pockets of domestic producers? Daniel Plafka investigates.
Balogun Market is at the heart of Nigeria's largest city. And it's here that all kinds of everyday items are bought and sold. Among the bales and bundles on display are tons of human hair, a crucial commodity in the region's booming beauty industry. But whether natural or synthetic, almost all of the tresses sold here come from further afield.
Hair in Lagos is big business. These are just some of the thousands of wig shops and salons that rely on pre-wefted hair from China and Southeast Asia to remain well stocked. But with so much of the processing taking place overseas, the Nigerians who run these businesses remain near the bottom of this lucrative value chain.
They will not sell direct to you. They may ask one of their family, you understand, to be a middleman. They will sell to that person before you be able to buy from them. If you can be able to make a better quality in Nigeria, it will be easier for us.
Bessie Duke Odu takes a similar view. After spending over a decade in the industry, she's convinced that African women could earn a bigger share from a business that is driven overwhelmingly by their style and fashion tastes.
Truthfully speaking, Africa is dominated with consumers when it comes to hair. We're more of consumers, that's what we are. And I felt that the narrative had to change. Initially, I had a franchise where I used to sell makeup and hair products. And one of the days I was just looking closely at the hair. I said, this thing looks like something that can be made. Why do I have to be the retailer? Why do I have to, why can't I go and learn how it's being made? So I started researching about hair manufacturing.
Bessie saved to travel to South Korea, where she trained as an apprentice at a factory to learn the finer points of wefting and wig making. After returning to Nigeria, she founded the Flair Hair Academy to pass on her skills to others and to put her talents into practice in her native country.
Yes, there's a technical aspect as it concerns hair, but at the end of the day, it's mostly handwork, right? So there's someone behind what is being done. Why can't we spread the knowledge? Why can't our people, be skilled and know what to do?
The company deals exclusively in natural human hair. This shipment came from Myanmar. Unlike her competitors, Bessie can save big by ordering the hair raw and doing the washing, wefting, and other processing in-house. Orders come from as far away as Benin and Senegal.
We make closures, frontals, and 360s. We can make full lace. I can make a frontal in 2 to 3 days, depending on the size or the texture of the hair. Some hair can be difficult to work with.
Today, the factory employs 20 workers, while over 100 others have passed through the Academy's paid training program. Africa's market for wigs, weaves, and extensions is already valued at nearly $6 billion. And as skills and processing capacity continue to expand, African women stand poised to collect a bigger share of the profits. Daniel Plafker, Africa Matters, Lagos.
This week, we explore Kisumu, a port city in western Kenya. The country's third largest city serves as an international trading and transport hub, thanks to its water and rail connections. Have a look. And that's our show for this week. Please share your thoughts and suggestions about the stories you've seen on this episode or ideas on what you would like us to cover on Twitter using the hashtag #AfricaMatters. Feel free to reach out to me on my personal handle. It's @Adesewa Josh. You can watch this episode and more on YouTube. Just search Africa Matters TRT World. Like, comment, and don't forget to share. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you next week.